Hey guys, and welcome to or back to the Pause of Pursuit podcast with your host, Summer Clark. So this week I'm going to be discussing a topic that one of you requested over on my Instagram story a couple of weeks ago when I asked you guys to basically tell me what you want to hear in the next few episodes. So today I'm going to be telling you how to create a pre and post run routine that works for you. Now, I love this topic because I think pre and post run routines are widely overlooked by a lot of people within the agility community. Again, not all of you, but I see people get their dogs out of the car and run. Like, that's literally it. There's nothing in between that. Get out the car and run. There's just nothing that goes on in that gap. And I have personally benefited a lot from creating my own pre-run routine and then also a post-run routine. Like, you'd be surprised at how much of an impact and a difference it makes on your mindset and your dog's mindset and your body's physically as well, what you do after you run and in the 5-10 minutes after you run as well. So, I've seen a benefit with both of these routines, including both these routines in a show day and also in training as well. It does make a difference in training as well, not just competition. So today I'm going to be telling you how to create a pre and post run routine that works for you. Emphasis on the works for you, because not everyone will have the same pre and post run routine. Like, that would be absurd, because as I always harp on about on this podcast and everywhere I speak, basically, every single handler and dog is different. There is no partnership that is the same, and it's going to take trial and error to find a pre and post run routine that works for you and your dog as individuals. You can take inspiration from other people and their pre and post run routines, but don't expect them to work for you and you to feel good before and after your run from them and, for it to benefit your dog, etc. You're going to have to come up with your own. Okay, and it sounds like a lot of effort, a lot of work. It's not. You just need to trial and error, like I said. And, it will come quite naturally, I believe, or it did with me at least. Once you get into the habit of trialing things before and after you run, you will realise what helps, okay? And then you can start implementing that regularly, and before you know it, you have an entire routine before and after you run that consists of loads of things, not necessarily loads, but a series of things that make you and your dog feel ready to run and then ready to rest and reflect after your run. Okay, so that is going to be today's episode. So I have 10 points to help you guys create those routines for yourself. And then I'm going to give you a pre and post run routine example. And that is basically, to be transparent, my pre and post run routines. Okay, but when you're listening to those, remember that's very individual to me and Arrow and will not suit everyone. It's not necessarily going to suit you if you give it a go. But like I said, you can give it a go if you're starting from nowhere. And maybe some bits will work, some won't, and then you know where to start. You have a few bits to start with, and then you can gradually add more to it over time. So, point number 1 of how to create a pre and post run routine that works for you. Know what you want to achieve out of each routine. Okay, so as I've said before about various things, know your why kind of thing. How do you want to feel by the end of them? What state of mind does your dog need to be in by the end of them? So, for example, do you want your dog to be calmer or crazier before they run, basically? So, after you've carried out your pre-run routine, do you want your dog to be in a calmer or crazier headspace? This will depend on the dog. So, for Arrow, I want him to be calmer when he goes into a run, ideally, because he can keep his head and focus and listen when he's in a calmer state of mind. This doesn't impact his speed, because he's a speedy dog anyway and he's driven, but he needs to be in a calm mindset. If he goes in crazy, it's likely to go wrong and he won't be listening. So I want to achieve a calm mindset for Arrow out of my pre-run routine. Ethel, however, I wanted her to be crazier before she went into a run because she was a lot less driven and a lot less motivated than Arrow. So my pre-run routine with Ethel was different to what it is with Arrow for that reason. Same for you. So how do you want to feel by the end of them? How do you want to feel by the end of your pre-run routine just before you step into that ring, essentially? Which for me is focused, calm and grounded. Okay, I'm kind of the same as Arrow. I'm better when I'm a bit calmer going in, mentally wise. Physically wise, though, for me, I want to feel warm. I want to feel loose. I want to feel like I'm not going to snap in half if I suddenly start sprinting. I want my heart rate to be elevated. I don't want to have a resting heart rate. So I want the blood to be pumping around my veins, essentially, so that I'm ready to run, basically. Okay, so I want to be physically alert and, blood flow around my veins, my heart is pumping, and then mentally I want to feel focused and calm and confident. Okay, that's what I want to achieve out of my pre-run routine. And then Arrow, I want him to feel calm and I want him to be focused on me. And then obviously I also want his body to be, again, warm and loose, just like mine, so that he doesn't injure himself during the run and that he can fully extend, etc., etc., etc. Post-run routine, I want to feel, again, calm. A lot of this is about calmness for me, I'm realising. By the end of my post-run routine, I want to feel calm and grounded, just like my pre-run routine. I also want to feel, so I want my heart rate to be back down to a resting heart rate. And I also want to have done my cool down stretches. So I want my body to feel loose and I don't want to feel tight in my muscles. I want to feel loose and just calm in my physical body as well as my mental state. Worst feeling ever is having just your body being physically tight after exercise. It's a horrible feeling. And especially if you forget to stretch and then you sit down for a while and then you get up half an hour later and it's a horrible feeling. You're just absolutely rigid and we don't want that. So physically, after my post-run routine, I want to feel loose and stretched and just zen, basically, in my body. I also want to feel calm and zen in my mind. I want to be in a headspace where I can think with a realistic perspective, so I'm not emotional. I want to not be in an emotional headspace, okay? I want to be in a grounded, realistic headspace because this will then allow me to reflect on my run in a healthy way where I'm not beating myself up or picking apart every aspect of the run. I want to be able to constructively criticise when I watch that run back. So that is mentally where I want to be at by the end of my post-run routine. Point number 2 is know how much time you need to dedicate to each routine in order to achieve this. So how much time do you need to achieve the feeling for you and your dog that you want to achieve at the end of that routine? Okay, and then you have to know that and then allow plenty of time for it. And again, this will be trial and error. For a few shows, you'll probably not allow enough time and you won't get into that headspace, into that physical state before you run, and it will impact you. But then you will learn from that and you'll know what you needed to include. And then next time you can allow a bit more time to include what you've realised that you should have included, if that makes sense. This is less important for a post-run routine because generally you have plenty of time after a run until the next one for this post-run routine. If you do have runs back to back, then I suggest doing the post-run routine after the second run. There's no point doing, if you do a post-run routine after a run and then immediately have to do your pre-run routine again to go back into another run, it's pointless. You may as well just, class 2 very close runs in close proximity as one run kind of thing, if that makes sense. Same for training when you have a training session, but you have lots of little separate runs. I'll come on to that later. You don't need to be doing your pre and post and pre and post and pre and post routine over and over again. In that scenario, use common sense. But yeah, the timing aspect is definitely more important for the pre-run routine because it's when you have, you only have a certain amount of time between starting the pre-run routine and the run. The problem isn't only not allowing enough time, it's leaving too much time and having like 10 minutes where you have white space, you have nothing to do. You're ready to run, but you can't run for another 10 minutes because, maybe you're in a really long queue or it's not your running order. Okay, so that can be equally as problematic. I'd say it's better to be that way than rushed for time, for sure. But ideally, you want to get that timing just right. And again, time yourself. When you find a routine that works, time it. In fact, before you've even found one that necessarily works and is your best routine, time every routine you do, okay? And then you know exactly when you need to start it. And I know we don't always know exactly what time we're going to run, but generally we have a good gist of it. This is where you can use your grooms to an advantage if you get them to queue. So you have 10 dogs in the queue and then your groom, you have 10 minutes, okay? And maybe your pre-run routine is 8 minutes, so perfect. Or maybe, you need to allow more time. You need to get maybe you need to get ready when dog number 30 out of 60 goes in the ring, and then you can just choose to run last. If your pre-run routine, for whatever reason, takes half an hour, probably shouldn't take that long, but you get what I'm trying to say, okay? And then post-run routine, like I said, time it just for curiosity, but generally you don't have a time limit on your post-run routine, do you, really? But yeah, this all requires a lot of trial and error, okay? And you will get it wrong a few times. Don't beat yourself up. It's all part of the learning process here. Point number 3 is know what you need to do to get yourself and your dog into the correct state of mind. So what do you need to do to get yourself and your dog into a calm, focused mindset? Okay. What activities or movements produce the correct mindset? For example, moving around or sitting quietly. So does exercising a little bit beforehand make you feel more focused, alert and calm if that's what you want to achieve? So in my case, does moving around make me feel more focused and calm, or does sitting quietly make me feel more focused and calm? For me, it's a bit of both. Mainly moving around gets me into the headspace that feels good for me to start a run. So I want to be moving leading up to my run. Okay, I'm not saying there isn't a place for sitting quietly, but I generally do that, in the rest of my day at a show. I'll sit quietly, if that makes sense. But when I start my pre-run routine, I generally like to be moving around because that makes me feel alert, focused and grounded. Okay, so I know to include activities that involve me moving around and exercising and getting that heart rate up, because that puts me into a state of mind that feels good for me entering a run and allows me to perform my best. But maybe you need to sit quietly and do nothing, or sit quietly and listen to music before you run, and then you go in and you perform at your best, okay? So it's knowing what activities get you into the mindset that you decided was the optimal mindset for you before a run in point number 1, okay? And again, this will be a lot of trial and error, but also you should kind of have an idea what kind of person you are, what kind of makes you feel a certain way. You should probably have a rough idea anyway. In just general life, maybe in your work life, in your family life, anything, kind of what actions creates what kind of mindsets, and then you can implement that into your agility, or at least trial it and see if it's the same in agility, because it might not be. It might be the opposite, it might be completely different, okay? But it's important to know what gets you into that state of mind, okay? What activities and things can you do to then feel like that afterwards, feel like you want to at the end of it. Same for your dog. So how does your dog end up in a calm and focused mindset? So for Arrow, that is engaging with me, focusing on me, doing things that I'm asking him to do. So maybe a sequence of tricks. Well, definitely a sequence of tricks before we run. That is something that is in my pre-run routine. That makes him focused on me, yeah? But then that also hypes him up a little bit. So then maybe 3 dogs, roughly. I say maybe because, again, it depends. Sometimes our dogs are going to throw us curveballs. They're not always going to be in exactly the same state of mind, are they? So for Arrow, it is a case of doing those activities, that series of tricks that gets him focused on me, and he's in that focused mindset. And then maybe 3 dogs before we run, I'll just ask him to sit and watch me, and that is him getting into that calm state of mind, okay? So he's focused and then he's calm. And that is his optimal mindset, if that makes sense. Whereas Ethel used to be the other way around. I'd sit her quietly, keep her calm, and then last minute I'd do those tricks to hype her up, okay? Because I wanted her to be crazy going in, okay? So it's the opposite way round. So again, very, very dog dependent. Number 4. Include a physical warm-up and cool down for both you and your dog. Now, this is a huge one for me. This is probably a pet peeve for me as well. I see so many, and I'm not outing anyone, but I see so many people just not warm their dogs up or cool them down. Like, especially warm-ups, like people just get their dogs out of the vehicle and just do the run straight away. And that's just asking for an injury, to be honest. And your dog's also not going to do its best competitive run. It's not going to extend fully and be as fast as it could be, because its muscles are literally cold and short. Okay, you want your dog's muscles and just their bodies to be nice and loose. Think of like Play-Doh or plasticine. If you warm it up in your hands, it becomes nice and loose, and you can pull it and press it and it won't break or snap. And it just has a much better range of movement. Whereas when you first get it out of the tub, it is rock solid. If you try and pull it straight away, it will probably snap. And it's really, if you try and pull it, it won't pull very long. It stays short. You can only get it to pull to a very short distance, if that makes sense. And that is the same for your dog's muscles, your dog's body. And again, I'm no expert on that kind of thing, but again, it's using common sense. So same for you. That's the exact same thing. Yours and your dog's bodies are basically the same in that sense. Okay, it's still a living body with muscles and tendons and ligaments that need preparing for activity, basically. So yeah, make sure to include that physical warm-up and cool down for you and your dog. You want to feel loose and ready to move before your run, and loose and relaxed after. So you never want to feel tight and tense. That's never an optimal way to feel in your body for you or your dog, okay? So as you can see, the pattern here is loose, okay? You want to feel loose before and after your run. The difference is before you run, you want to feel alert, that heart rate up, you want to almost put yourself, and this is what it is, I think, getting your heart rate up before a run, it puts you into that action, that state of action. Yeah, it gets your body and mind thinking, right, we're about to take action, we're about to move, and we're awake for it. Whereas you want to feel relaxed after. So you still want to feel loose physically, but you want to feel relaxed and wound down, okay, and calm. All right, just never tight and tense, physically or mentally, to be honest. You don't want to feel uptight, and you don't want to feel tense mentally, and you don't want to physically either, okay? So the exact same goes for your dog. They want to feel loose and ready to move before they run, and then loose and relaxed after. Okay, so you want to make sure you're including a physical warm-up and cool down. I'm not going to give those kind of routines myself necessarily here because, again, I'm not qualified or overly knowledgeable in that kind of field of, your dog's bodies. I have the common sense part, hopefully, down to a T, which is what I've said just a few minutes ago, but I'm not going to go in too much more detail about that. I'm pretty sure, well, I know for a fact, I recorded a podcast episode with Megan Hunt, who is Arrow's physio. She is a qualified vet physio, and I think she was one of my very early on episodes, actually. So if you search Megan Hunt in my podcast episodes, then you should find an episode with her, and I'm pretty certain we did discuss warm-ups and cool-downs in that episode, okay? And she is qualified, so I'll let you go and listen to that episode if you want more specific warm-up and cool-down routines and exercises for your dog, mainly there. But again, I feel like I can say more about people because it's quite obvious, and you probably all see me do it at shows anyway. The warm-ups, I'll be jogging on the spot, I'll be swinging my legs, I'll be doing bodyweight squats, I'll be twisting my ankles round, doing ankle circles, I'll be, doing calf raises on the ground, I'll be swinging my arms round, as if I'm swimming, kind of doing that butterfly. I think you know what I'm on about. You probably see me do that. I'll be twisting my back round, just getting everything really loose. That's kind of the warm-up that I do for myself. And then cool down wise, I'll do stretches. So I'll do that lean over hamstring stretch. I'll do the calf stretch where you go forward. I will do a sideways version of that stretch. So I'm stretching the inside of my thighs. Quad stretch, obviously holding your foot and stretching it towards your bum, and that stretches your calf. I'll sit on the floor and have straight legs and cross one leg over my other leg, so my foot is next to my knee, and pull that bent leg towards me. That stretches my glutes. Stuff like that works for me, okay? And I think they're pretty common cool down stretches. Okay, I'll maybe do a child's pose, so I'm on my knees with my arms out in front of me and my forehead on the floor, and that stretches my back. I'll stand up and try and touch my toes. That's, again, stretches that lower back and hamstrings. Stuff like that. Again, your body. If you've got any niggles or injuries or anything like that, don't do the things that will cause that any more pain or anything like that. But that's what works for me and is generally, I'd say, appropriate for most people. Dog-wise, it's a bit more complicated because our dogs can't tell us what is uncomfortable and what isn't. And, dogs are structured differently, and I don't want to tell you what stretches to do with your dog, really. Like I said, listen to the episode with Megan for more information on that side of things. I've got things that I do with Arrow, but again, he is under a physio for her advice, etc., etc. I know him and how his body works and stuff like that. So yeah, point number 4, basically in a nutshell, is to make sure you're including a physical warm up and cool down before and after your runs for both you and your dog. So point 5, include a mental warm up and cool down for both you and your dog. So you want to feel focused and zoned in before your run, and then calm and grounded after it. So being calm and grounded after your run will allow you to reflect on the run with a healthy perspective. Like I said earlier, you want to be able to sit down and reflect on it with a sort of constructive mindset where you can constructively criticize yourself without getting mad at yourself or beating yourself up, etc. If you don't do that mental kind of cool down, then you'll come out of the run with very heightened emotions, especially if it went slightly wrong. You'll be beating yourself up saying, oh, it's because I did this, I should have done this and stuff like that. So give time, do something that, you know, gives yourself enough time and space to get out of that emotional state and back to your kind of normal, grounded state of mind. And then you can reflect, okay? Don't do it straight after you come out of the run. You need this time. And, you know, I like to do it I'll just go for a little walk with Arrow, and that physically cools us down. And that also makes me feel super calm afterwards. You know, some people like to talk it out when they come out of a run. I'm personally better to just be quiet for, you know, 10, 20 minutes after my run and be by myself, you know, and just process in my own head, and that helps me get to that ideal state after my run. So that's what I do in my mental cool down kind of thing. And then dog wise, again, we can't control what goes on in our dogs' heads, but again, doing those physical activities that are calm, like just going for a walk, doing some stretches, that in itself will put your dog into a more calm state of mind after the run. Because again, dogs can get quite pent up if they're just shoved straight back in their crate after a run. They're still in that heightened state of arousal mentally, and it's going to be a lot harder for them to go to sleep and rest again for their next run if they haven't had the time to themselves just mentally decompress and get back to a normal, neutral mental state before they go back in the car to sleep, if that makes sense. It's like if you did a hectic workout and then got straight into bed. You're not going to sleep, are you? You have to cool yourself down, you know, have a bit of zen time, and then you can go to sleep. It's that kind of principle for your dog, okay? Point number 6 is keep each routine consistent and predictable. So try not to change it around too much. Now, in the initial stages of forming these routines and finding ones that work for you, you will be, like I said, using a lot of trial and error, which is absolutely fine and normal. It will change in that period. That's different. But once you've established one that works for you, I always say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep it the same. This will allow conditioning to occur within yours and your dog's brain. So essentially, this means you do your pre-run routine and your brain goes, this means we're about to run. And same for your dog. And then post-run routine means we're about to rest and reflect. So, God's sake. Right. So that is basically what you're trying to do by keeping your routines the same, show in, show out, training session in, training session out. Because as soon as you start that pre-run routine and you start going through the motions, your brain will go, every time we do this, it means we're about to run. Okay, so your brain and body will be able to get ready, you know, in and of themselves. Okay, our brains and bodies are very smart. Same for post-run, our brains and bodies will go, this means every time we've done this means we're calming down, heart rate is lowering, getting zen, and reflection and rest is about to happen. We're about to chill out for the next hour or so. Okay, so you want to try, once you've established a pre and post run routine that works for you, keeping them like that. Okay, doesn't mean they have to be like that forever, but at least give them a good long while. Again, you don't really know how well something works for you or not if you don't do it for very long. You have to give everything you do in life time, okay, before you come to any certain conclusions as to whether it is working or not, okay? So give your routines a good handful of shows until you decide whether or not they're working, okay? And then try something else if you have to. So kind of on the other end of that spectrum. 7, embrace trial and error and adjust your routines if necessary. Now for this, I'm more on about those initial stages where you've just kind of created the routines. Okay, like I said, once you've got them established and you know they work, keep them consistent and the same show in, show out. And yeah, you want them to be predictable to your brain after you've figured out one that works. But in the period where you're still creating them and finding what works, don't be afraid to tweak your routines until you perfect them. This is unlikely to happen within 1 or 2 shows, so don't expect your routines to be perfect and work perfectly within 1 or 2 shows, like those first few shows of trying them out. You are going to have to tweak them a little bit. It might not be completely revamping them. Ideally, it's just maybe adding one thing or taking one thing out or replacing one thing with something similar but slightly different that you think will work better, or completely kicking the whole thing to the curb and coming up with something new if it really doesn't work. That's fine. In those initial stages, embrace trial and error, embrace it going wrong or not working, because then you know what not to do and then what you need to add in instead. And then you're one step closer to finding a really good one that works. Point number 8 is use your routines in training as well as at shows. So I lightly touched on this earlier. So doing this not only gives you an extra opportunity to practice and perfect them, so, more chance to try them out, and, that kind of speeds up that process of trial and error a bit more because you're using them more and you can find out more whether they're working or not over time. But it also helps to teach yours and your dog's brain, again, like I was saying earlier, what they mean. Okay, so you don't have to carry them out between every single run, like I was saying earlier, or so in training. I do my pre-run routine at the start of the session, and then I'll have maybe 3 runs in that hour session or whatever, and I'll probably have 5-10 minutes between each one. I don't do my, even if it's 10 minutes between each run in training, I just sit there for that amount of time. Like I'm not going to do my post-run routine after each of those 3 runs just to do that gets silly, if that makes sense. Okay, so do it at the start and end of a training session. Maybe you've got a 2-hour training session, that's fine. Just do it at the start and end of that session. Okay, not between every single run in that 2-hour session, if that makes sense. But yeah, if you can do this at the start and end of your training, then it will mimic a competition and it just gives you more time, more opportunity to practice them and realise what does and doesn't work, etc. And then if you've got one that works perfectly and you found one that works really well for you, like I have now, it just reinforces in your brain what they mean. Okay, so the more you do something and the more one thing is linked with another, and the more you can associate, your brain can associate one thing with another, the stronger that link, that connection is going to be in your brain, and the faster your brain will go, I know what this means, and respond accordingly in a show environment when you really, really need it to. Okay. Point number 9, take inspiration from other partnerships' pre and post run routines, but try to avoid falling into the comparison trap. Okay. So it's so easy, especially when you're at a show or training where you're surrounded by other people doing the same thing as you. You see other people doing their routines and you compare yourself to them, and maybe they're getting better results than you at the time. So you maybe think, it must be because their pre and post run routine is perfect and mine's not, and blah, blah, blah. It's not how it works, okay? Every partnership is different, and what helps you and your dog before and after a run is very unlikely to be the same for someone else and their dog. Okay, it's just how it is. Like, you can take inspiration. So maybe you do see someone that you admire that gets good results and has a great bond with their dog and runs really well when they're in that ring, and you know what their pre and post run routine is, or you see them doing it and think, that's a good idea. Let me try adding that one thing into mine, and then you can see if it works for you or not. Okay, and if it does, fantastic. You've taken inspiration from that other person. If it doesn't, that's fine. Just don't include it again, if that makes sense. Okay, so feel free to take inspiration, but it's not necessarily going to work for you. And if it doesn't, that's absolutely normal. You just need to find what works for you. Okay, again, taking parts of someone's pre and post run routine that has a dog of a similar mindset and character to yours is probably going to be more likely to work for you and your dog than if you go with someone who has a dog that's not like yours at all, as far as natural drive and focus and enthusiasm and stuff like that. Okay, same as you as the handler. as a handler, sorry. If you're more of a nervous disposition before a competition, there's no point comparing your pre and post run routine to someone who doesn't get nervous in competition and is naturally super confident, okay, and vice versa. It probably will not click at all with you, okay, so bear that in mind as well. Point number 10, practice running without carrying out your full pre-run routine every now and again. Now, this may sound super counterintuitive to everything I've just said, but things happen, and if you suddenly find yourself without the time you usually have before you have to run, you need to be able to run to the best of your ability under these uncontrollable circumstances too. Okay, so for example, you're in a champ run and it's strict running order, and 5 people before you drop out, and they suddenly go, Summer, you're up, okay, and you haven't completed your pre-run routine, or you're halfway through it by the side of the ring, and those people have dropped out, and they say, Summer, you're up, okay? You cannot panic and let this affect your performance, okay? You have to know what to do to deal with this situation in the best way you can, and still perform, still be able to step straight into that ring and perform, even if this happens, okay? The thing you don't want to do is end up relying so heavily on that pre-run routine that you cannot function without it, okay? The pre-run routine is meant to benefit you and help improve your run. It shouldn't be the thing that means without it you cannot run, if that makes sense, okay? So again, it's not being too extreme about it. You don't have to skip your warm-up. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying just allow maybe a little less time than usual on the odd occasion and give a couple of the less crucial parts a miss. Physical warm-up, still super important. Same as cool down. But again, the world doesn't end if you don't do your post-run routine, okay? It's not as critical as the pre-run routine, where if you can't do that, it's going to affect you more, isn't it, than if you can't do your post-run routine, okay? Not being able to do the post-run routine isn't going to affect the run you've just had because you've already had it. Still beneficial, but it's not as crucial as if you can't carry out your pre-run routine before a run. Okay, so every now and again, just throw in one where you just do a few steps of your pre-run routine and then run. Okay, or sometimes maybe just do the physical warm-up and then go run. Okay, it probably won't be your best run ever, but it's a good idea. So this is great to do in training as well, when it doesn't matter as much, or a competition that is small. Maybe you're just at a small show for training purposes. Just try running, without that full usual routine, because you do not want to get to the point where you have to do it. Otherwise, you physically can't cope at all. Okay. So now I'm going to give you examples of a pre and post run routine. So this is what I do. Again, please remember point 9, take inspiration and remember what kind of person I am and Arrow is. And what kind of dog Arrow is. And do not think that this is what you have to do. It is just ideas. Feel free to pluck some of these ideas out and put them into your own routines. Again, in that trial and error process we were talking about. So, pre-run routine example. So, a good point here is wear headphones and listen to music that focuses you if you find this beneficial. So if I'm at a big show where I'm going to be walking a course, for example, with a lot of people, I will wear headphones to walk that course. I know we're not talking about walking courses, but same principle applies, okay, in your pre-run routine. If wearing headphones and blocking out noise, and, this also stops people coming up to talk to you. If this is the kind of environment you want and helps you during that pre-run routine, wear headphones, okay? Pop your headphones on and listen to music that focuses you if you find that helpful. Again, trial it, see if it helps. Also, if you're someone who finds that they're better if they stay distracted before a run, you could listen to a podcast, okay? Listen to someone have a conversation, yeah? So, get your dog out of the car. Walk your dog for 5 minutes. Run through a sequence of 5 to 10 tricks with your dog, including warm-up exercises. So a few examples. Again, I said earlier, I'm not going to go into the exact warm-up routine Arrow has, but some examples so you just know what kind of things I'm talking about. 4 warm-up exercises for a dog are tight circles. So treat on the nose and then very tight circles in both directions. And paw lifts as well, so lifting alternating paws. You can do this with front and back feet, rear foot target, stuff like that. Put your dog in a down or hand them to your groom after you've done these tricks, and then run through a sequence of 5 to 10 warm-up exercises for yourself, such as squats and leg swings. I already said pretty much what I do earlier as far as my physical warm-up goes. And then obviously jumping on the spot, jogging on the spot, jump squats, stuff like that. Again, careful with yourself. You know what your body can and cannot handle. But I like to kind of start with the less exuberant kind of warm maneuvers and then end with more of the high intensity stuff, like the sprinting on the spot, high knees, jump squats, stuff that will get that heart rate up, like I said earlier, because that helps me get into that alert state of mind where I'm ready to run. So then you can take your dog back and walk to the ring. Run through the course in your head. I find mentally walking the course super helpful. Also running through your handling maneuvers on the spot. So again, if you've got your groom, you can give your dog to your groom at this point, or you can pop them in a down next to you, stand on their lead, put their lead through your arm, whatever, and run through your handling maneuvers. So kind of walking the course on the spot. Yeah, so you're doing your arm maneuvers. You're mentally completely zoned out. You're visualizing the course in your head. Visualization I find super helpful. And you're walking through the motions of your handling that you're going to do in the ring. I find that super helpful while I'm next to the ring, after I've mentally walked the course just in my head. Then join the queue with your dog and ask them to focus on you until you enter the ring. In fact, first I'd join the queue and then do some more tricks, and then I would just sit Arrow quietly and get him to focus on me. So look at me, and every few minutes give him a treat, okay? And if he looks somewhere else, say watch me and give him a treat. And then obviously enter the ring. Like I said, you can continue to run through a sequence of tricks during the queuing process if that helps you. So that is kind of my example of a pre-run routine. I know I said about using a groom, doesn't have to be that way. You can just pop your dog in a down or stand on the lead or something like that, if that makes sense. You don't have to have a groom there, but obviously you need to be focusing on yourself for the sequence of 5 to 10 warm-up exercises for yourself, and it can be quite inconvenient to hold a lead and be doing jump squats and leg swings and stuff like that, because knowing me, I'd probably kick Arrow in the face. So I always get my mum, bless her, to hold him while I'm doing all those exuberant things. I also often use my mum's shoulder. I hold onto my mum's shoulder while I do my leg swings, because sometimes I lose my balance, okay? Don't want to be falling flat on my face, all right? So again, that is roughly mine. Again, I say stuff like, walk your dog for 5 minutes. One day that might be 10 minutes, one day that might be 2, okay? But that walk is, I enjoy that walk physically and mentally. And then the series of 5 to 10 tricks with the dog and 5 to 10 warm-up exercises depends how much you feel like you need, okay? How many do you need to do until you feel like, yes, my dog is warmed up and focused on me? And how many warm-up exercises do you need to do until you feel, yeah, my body is in the correct state to run and I feel loose and I feel ready? Okay, so again, it's very dependent, but that is pretty much what I do. And that mentally walking the course and running through my handling maneuvers is a big one after I've walked to the ring for me. And then once I'm in the queue, I can just, again, focus solely on my dog, on Arrow, doing a few more tricks, and then getting him to sit and look at me, and then, you know, checking him back in with me if he looks away, stuff like that, okay? And then once I've done all of that, I feel like we've done everything, we're ready, we're focused, we're alert, we're ready to work as a team and smash the run. So post-run routine example then, there's a lot less to it than the pre-run routine, but it generally includes, obviously, goes without saying, but leaving the ring and rewarding your dog. Then another walk, so 5 minutes roughly for me, could be a slightly less, could be 10 minutes, who knows, up to you. But that walk I do find nice and helpful for my mental state as well, just calming myself down, getting myself out of that emotional state. I generally like to do this without any other people, so it's just me and Arrow. Also helps Arrow get into a calmer mental space and also physically cool down. Then I would run through a sequence of 5 to 10 cool down stretches with Arrow. And then I would put Arrow back in the car, give him a drink, and obviously have a drink myself. I would then run through a sequence of 5 to 10 cool down stretches for me. So again, I've already kind of discussed what I do as far as they go earlier. And that is it, guys. That is all my points. And that is an example of a pre and post run routine. So you kind of get the gist of the types of things that are involved in them. Again, don't feel the need to copy it flat out. You can try it if you would like to. If you're starting from nowhere, why not? Give that a go. But otherwise, you probably listened to a few of the points and thought, that wouldn't suit me, that wouldn't suit my dog. But I could do this as an alternative, and it would be better for me and my individual dog. Okay, so yeah, take it as you will, take bits out of those as you will, but that is the episode for today. Like I said, please do go and listen to the episode I did yonks ago now with Megan Hunt. Like I said, I'm pretty sure we did discuss warm up and cool down exercises for dogs and stuff like that in more depth, and she is completely qualified. So yeah, go listen to that. But that is me for this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode and benefited from it. If you have any further questions, please do pop me a DM. I would be more than happy to answer them or discuss this topic or anything else really further. Go ahead and do that on my Instagram at Pause in Pursuit. That's usually where people DM me, or on Facebook at Summer Clark. You can also get in contact with me over there. Just follow me on social media in general, please, at Pause in Pursuit. That would be great. Also, you can pretty much keep up with everything I'm doing over there. So it benefits you as well because, as we all know, I have such an exciting life, don't I? But yeah, at Pause in Pursuit or Summer Clark on all the platforms. Follow me on there, keep up with me on there, and also pop me any messages on there if you would like to chat about anything further. Also, please do give the podcast a 5-star rating or review on Apple or Spotify or anywhere you stream your podcast. That would mean the world to me. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please do make sure to follow the podcast to make sure you don't miss out on any future ones, because I have some amazing guests coming up. I have the incredible Max Sprins coming on the podcast very, very shortly, which I am so excited about, because what a legend, and I just cannot wait for that conversation, and you do not want to miss that for sure. Trust me, you do not want to miss that. So please do follow the podcast, and then you're not going to miss it. I also, last point now, I promise, in my outro, you're probably all sick of hearing these points, but I do offer in-person agility lessons. So I am an agility instructor. LN6 Lincoln is my area. So if you'd like any one-to-ones with me, any personal lessons, then please do get in touch. I would love to help you guys out achieving your agility goals, especially through winter, okay? It's the winter season. It's time to knuckle down and train our weaknesses, okay? So if you'd like my help, please do get in touch and we can schedule a session. I also offer group classes. So if you would like to know exactly what group classes, on what days and at what times I offer, most of them are over on my social media in the feed somewhere. Otherwise, just pop me a message, and then I'll be able to fit you in somewhere, and you can do some group classes too. I have some weekly and some fortnightly, some weekends, some weekdays, and some morning, some evening. So afternoon, sorry, not evening yet. Afternoon. But yeah, if you would like to train with me, again, please do get in touch. And I think that is everything for today. I hope you enjoyed the episode once again. I will see you guys over on my social media if you give me a follow, hopefully. And if not, I will speak to you all next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Bye, guys.